know, admittedly, I've been doing this a long time, and I am old for an active producer. But I watched Wexler as an active producer when he was older still. I don't think it is necessarily a young man's game, but I think it makes you old fast. It's harder than anybody knows. It takes a lot out of you, emotionally, physically. Now, Pro Tools, working with Pro Tools for 6 hours straight is like being beat in the face with a rubber hose. Bad music makes you weak. You have to record a lot of bad music to get to the good music. It's the dog, it's almost like the telephone. Documentary production is wonderful. I've got some dogs barking on a couple of my records. Best things on the record. But I'm afraid I don't see a lot of young producers coming that have got much besides an attitude and a laptop. I'm afraid the thing that's missing with all this new delivery system is the discovery process of what a thrill it used to be to find a record, especially a new record or a real old record, that you hadn't heard, that your friends hadn't heard, and, you know, to turn your friends onto it and to memorize it, you know, and to try to see if you can find out who the hell this weird person is and is there any more of it. I mean, that to me is a wonderful part of the listening part of recording, you know, and I'm afraid that's all, because everything is available, you know. If you know what it is, you can find it. There it is. You can Google it. And like, Luther and I, my son Luther and I were working on some Furry Lewis, you know, song. And I mean, I knew Furry Lewis. I played at his funeral. And we're talking about this lyric, and I can't remember it. And Luther said, well, just wait a minute. And he Googles up, and whatever the song was, there was like 20 versions of it by Furry Lewis on, you know, somewhere in the godless devil box. And that's just too available. That's just too available. And it is, okay, so that's an elitist attitude. So what? Everybody's not going to like Furry Lewis. You know, what's wrong with it being the property of the people who found it, intellectual property, rather than being part of this oversoul of information that anyone can access for their term paper. I set out to do art. I set out to be an artist. I don't mean, you know, like a recording artist. I set out to do art, to artfully do whatever this job of work, which is what it is. And I'm afraid that's being lost. When you take, let me say one more thing. When you take art and make it into information, which is what the internet does, I think you've done the art object a disservice. And that's why there's no good records. There's some people out there I hear, it's harder and harder to hear them, but there's some borderline people out there, marginal artists, just doing killer stuff. And there's no way to break it through. The country market, of all places, there's a little accessibility there where every once in a while an artist will slip around the system and connect. But and as I said at that panel yesterday, and I do not mean this to be funny, I think the fact that 30 million people buy the same product is awful. I think that's a horrible idea. Why should 30 million people like the same thing? It can't be very good.